Greetings and hello, you are tuned in to Metal Punk and Radio Talk with DJ Silvermyth. This is episode number 52 and we have an interview special and special guests. Beyond the Pale, a metal band from the Netherlands. Stay tuned in for an interview with that band. Also, I will stream up a bunch of metal and punk tracks. So stay tuned in for 1 hour of extra delicious metal and punk podcasting. As I said before, this is Metal Punk and Radio Talk with DJ Silvermyth, aka Silvermyth In The Dark. You can follow the podcast at rgm-hallofheroes.com. You can like the podcast at metal.heroes666. And you can tweet with the podcast at twitter.com/radiogardenman. Alright, the first question for Beyond the Pale from Netherlands. Tell the listeners a bit about the band, what inspired you to start, who are the members, and how did the band come to life?
First of all, thank you for having me on your show. My name is Johnny and I'm the drummer in Beyond the Pale. We are a metal band from the Netherlands who started in 2020. It was during the corona lockdown with the curfew, so that's about the worst timing you can think of. What can I say? Blood is thicker than water. It happened when guitarist Jeroen, aka Jerry, with whom I played in previous bands, more about that later on, he relocated from Berlin back to our hometown Utrecht in the Netherlands, where I finally could team up again with him, and I was very happy with the occasion to make some music together. Previously, both of us played in the bands Blood God and a band called Nuestros Derechos, Spanish name, even though we were from the Netherlands. However, our new band is named Beyond the Pale, which means something as unacceptable or outlawed, something that's crossing the bounds of morality or good behavior. It means something like unacceptable. The name is derived from the noun pale, meaning a stake. And the pale referred to in this name is usually taken to mean the English Pale. It was a part of Ireland under English rule, and therefore, as perceived by its rulers, it was within the bounds of civilization. And if you were beyond the Pale, it was seen as barbaric. It would have been regarded as dangerous and uncivilized, at least by the English. So in our opinion, Beyond the Pale is a suitable name. Jerry and I go way back. I think we first met around 2000 or 2001 through a mutual friend who happened to be a roommate, and we went out together, and over some beers we discovered our mutual love for underground metal and punk bands, hardcore punk. We had the same taste, same knack for certain bands. And I had been playing around, literally fiddling on my drum kit for a certain time, never played in a band before. I was a bit shy, to be honest. But Jerry seemed a nice enough guy, quite friendly, and I thought, teaming up with you doesn't seem to be so, let's say, daring. Music is a remarkable thing. If you play music on one hand, certain metal riffs and those galloping drums, and they can make you feel invincible. At the same time, playing music can make you also feel vulnerable. If you put your heart and soul in it, if you put in what you really feel, it makes you vulnerable in a way. Back then, I wasn't very good on my instrument. I just played for a short time. I had no band experience whatsoever, so I was a bit shy, to be honest. But Jerry, he knew all the cool riffs, he could play guitar, he had certain band experience. And I thought, you know what? Playing with you is a challenge that I'm willing to take. And From the first moment, it was so rewarding. I enjoyed it so much, so I never looked back. He is really like a brother to me. Around 2011, Jerry decided to move to Germany to work and live there, and basically our band Nuestros Trechos broke up. Earlier that year we formed a side project, Jerry and I, along with former Wargitect guitarist and vocalist Mike Schoenmaker, and this side project was called Blood God. And we had a handful of songs, enough to do some gigs, but we somehow suffered a series of lineup changes due to various reasons, so bassists came and went. We lost our singer, our vocalist, and after Mike and Jerry both decided to call it quits, I was the only original member left in Blood God. When Dan Dauma on guitar and vocals decided to join, when he joined, we decided to start over with a clean slate and new songs. We just kept the band name and the band logo, courtesy of Mike, and he allowed us to continue using, both the name and the logo after he departed, which was, of course, a very generous gesture. After Nuestros Derechos broke up, Frank van Boven on bass and vocals, who's also playing in Disquiet. You should really check those guys out, by the way. Yeah, after he joined, Blood God transformed from a side project into my main band for a while. Pseudologica Fantastica was released in 2013, and around 2016 we released our second EP called Catharsis. It was recorded at Maas Audio Studio in Utrecht by 3 enthusiastic, highly skilled sound engineers with a love for classical music and heavy metal bands. And Catharsis was mastered by Grammy-nominated engineer Jacob Hansen, who previously worked with bands like Aborted, Mercenary, Volbeat, Pestilence, and several other huge band names. Dan, our guitarist-vocalist, was really fond of bands like Pantera, Lamb of God. Essentially, he's an omnivore when it comes to music. He also likes deathcore, grindcore. His playlist always contained the most bizarre songs and funk. I think he likes thrash metal bands such as Anthrax, Megadeth, Annihilator, but he also has a weak spot for bands that are brutal, technical and melodic at the same time. Think of bands like Death, Legion, Arch Enemy. By the way, Frank performs in a Slayer tribute band called Player, so that should speak for itself as well. And for me, the 90s wave of death and thrash metal was a huge part of the soundtrack of my teenage years, and Scandinavian bands like At the Gates, Entombed, Edge of Sanity, as well as Florida death metal bands like Death, Malevolent Creation, thrash metal icons like Creator and Testament, and the occasional punk and hardcore bands, Poison Idea, you name it. Our musical influences came from a huge range of bands.
Alright, the next question for Beyond the Pale. Let's see here, what are your strides and drives during music creation? What sort of music do you like to portray, and what do you look for in good lyrics?
First of all, making music is most enjoyable when you seem to share the same sort of vibe. And our vibe is mostly metal. I like a lot of music, but I always end up with metal, heavy metal music. The music we enjoy playing most is simply energetic, aggressive music, up-tempo beats, slick guitar riffs, thrash, death, black metal, perhaps some elements from hardcore punk. I mean, that raw, the DIY mentality, perhaps some social awareness. And to us, the best parts of punk and metal combined create a perfect crossover. songs that show some sort of concern for this world. I really like the DIY mentality, the do-it-yourself attitude, the belief that you can accomplish many things by working together in order to create a small-scaled autonomy as an alternative over mainstream. So if you want to do something, simply do it yourself. Team up with others, make it happen. And these are some examples of elements that stem from punk and hardcore, and these are examples that I like to relate to. I know Jerry prefers to write personal lyrics, which is perfectly fine, of course, but I deem my personal life not suited for blazing metal songs, so I'm using other sources of inspiration. It could be everything and anything. In my opinion, truth is always stranger than fiction, and mankind never stops amazing me. I will give you some examples. I think I wrote about a microscopic animal called tardigrade. I wrote a song about, the fact that we're now living in the Anthropocene. We had a song about Hellspawn from a graphic novel called Spawn by Todd McFarlane. I was inspired to write a song called Het schrikkelijke tempeest about the storm that crushed the cathedral in our hometown Utrecht. It was a tornado, actually. I wrote a song about the faceless man from Game of Thrones. So again, it can be anything and everything. This might be a good moment to play one of those songs.
Alright, next question for Beyond the Pale, metal from the Netherlands. Tell the listeners a bit about your fans. What type of people are they and how do they respond to the band?
We might sound quite metal, but in many cases people sense that we have a sort of a hardcore punk DIY attitude. And, on a punk festival, we played a lot of punk festivals as a sort of a outsider metal band, but we were, with all the skank beats and punky riffs, the punky type of singing, we were always very welcome. And we also played on metal festivals, and there we also stood out because of our punky attitude. So I think that we had fans from both scenes. Both the punks and the long-haired metalheads seem to like us. Hopefully this will also be the case for Beyond the Pale. Although, to be honest, we aim to sound a bit heavier, and we hope to incorporate a little bit more from death and black metal as well.
Yes, indeed. Right there you heard Sheena is a Punk Rocker by the Ramones. I am DJ Silvermyth. You can subscribe with your podcast player at rgm-hallofheroes.com. Okay, back on the mic with Beyond the Pale, metal from the Netherlands. And back on the mic with me, DJ Silvermyth. Next question, what has the band been up to lately in terms of gigs, music creation, as well as band members' spare time?
It has been an unprecedented time, of course, with the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown and the curfews and the whatnot. So no gigs, unfortunately. Music creation has been hard. Luckily, I was able to visit Jeroen at his home, set up our drum kit over there in his shed, and play just with the two of us. But playing with a complete lineup, including a second guitarist, a singer, and a proper bassist, we haven't been able to recruit other musicians to complete our lineup due to Corona. This sucks, man, this sucks. So our first studio effort with Beyond the Pale is not an EP, it's not a full length, it's just one song. And we recorded it to be featured on a unique compilation album. It's in support of D-Bass. D-Bass is really something special. It's The premier independent underground venue in Utrecht, in our hometown. The venue has been around for over 25 years and it includes a stage, 17 rehearsal rooms, a recording studio, a bar with excellent craft beers and other drinks, some expo space, even a vegan fast food kitchen. Yeah, it's no wonder that D-Base has grown into a vital hangout spot for musicians and music fans alike. And it's like a second living room for us. However, the venue has suffered some serious setbacks and it's now in dire straits. First, the forced closure in response to COVID-19 and the sound of live music, clinking glasses and chattering laughs was replaced by deafening silence. Second, a raging fire recently damaged the monumental building, and on top of that are the aspirations by the city council and project developers. They want to upgrade the neighborhood with DBs left out of the equation, meaning there's a growing concern that this venue might not survive this threat. So, this venue has been an important meeting place at the heart of our community and the metal scene, no less than 17 metal bands teamed up for a unique compilation album. The album features a diversity of metal, from old school heavy metal to thrash, black death metal, whatever you name it, it's on there. All these bands have one thing in common, they all have D-Base as their home base. This compilation album, it includes exclusive live renditions, previously unreleased tracks, and it's exclusively limited to 500 copies worldwide. Each copy is painstakingly numbered by hand, so it's definitely a collector's item. You can order them, by the way, via dbstudio.nl or dbsutrecht.bandcamp.com. All proceeds will go to D-Base. So, our first release is also an open invitation for potential band members to join us, because our intention is to transform Beyond the Pale into a full-fledged band that can perform live on stage. If you are a lead guitarist, bass player or a singer with good vocal cords, please feel free to contact us. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
The time is now to stream up Beyond the Pale. I can't really read the name of the song, but it looks like Storm and Drift. But stay tuned in, here is the house guests of the evening, Beyond the Pale.
Blijkschouw, kerk, voorhaan en rad, vervolgers van het linkerbad.
Alright, let's pursue the interview with Beyond the Pale, a heavy metal band from the Netherlands. Next question, which is the band's greatest concert/gig endeavor?
The band's best gig ever. That's a hard one. As Beyond the Pale, we never played live. We never had a concert because we started so recently. However, I can recall some of the most amazing shows we did with our initial band Nuestros Derechos. I remember, for instance, that in 2007, which is quite a long time ago, we traveled to Wacken Open Air in Germany. Wacken Open Air, it might be the world's biggest metal festival, and we traveled there with a complete backline. We organized a power generator for our amplifiers, and we set up a drum kit, and we played there at the festival campsite between the tents and the caravans in the middle of the night, right after the official program had ended. And we were performing close to the main entrance, so we had quite a bit of attention from all tired and drunk metalheads who were actually on the way to their tents, but they stayed for our Wacken performance and they enjoyed this unexpected bonus. So this was a remarkable show that we did. Another experience that will stay with me for the rest of my life is one time we were touring in Germany. We were driving on the Autobahn to our gig in Leipzig, and suddenly the left rear wheel of our band bus passed us by because the axle had broken while we were driving about 100 kilometers per hour on the highway. So that was quite scary. Fortunately, no personal accidents occurred. Of course, we could not continue and we had to be towed away. We arranged replacement transport, but we had to leave a large part of our backline behind. And in the meantime, we tried to call our booker for our show in Leipzig to explain that we had some delay. Actually, we had been delayed by 6 hours, but we could not reach him. We could not get hold of him. Nobody picked up the phone, and we feared that everything would already be over by then, but despite all odds, we still traveled on. And when we stepped in at 1 in the morning instead of 8 in the evening, 6 hours after we were expected to arrive, we heard the band before us on stage just finish their last song. So we plugged in right away and then released all our frustrations from that day with a devastating show. And that was really one of the most intense but also satisfying shows we ever did, I think.
Alright, it's time to pick up the interview with Beyond the Pale, metal from the Netherlands. The last song you heard was Going Home by Sophie Selmane. Next question for Beyond the Pale, metal from the Netherlands, as I have said 1,000,000 times. Let's see here, next question. What bands do you enjoy, and if you had to choose favorite artist plus song, who and what tune would you choose?
Our favorite songs, this is a hard question. There are many tracks that I am fond of. What I can tell you though is the favorite track from Agonized, the Berlin-based death metal band that Jerry was a member of when he was working and living in Berlin, Germany for a couple of years. It's the third track on their demo, particularly because of this ending. It reminds me of Left Hand Path by Entombed from Sweden. Iconic band, and this, the final part is just as epic.
Last question for Beyond the Pale. Let's see here, what are the band's plans for the future, speaking of music releases and concerts?
As for Beyond the Pale, our plans for the future, well, first of all, we really would like to complete our lineup. So what we do is cross our fingers and hope for the best, really hoping that this whole pandemic will be over soon and that we no longer have curfews or lockdowns, so we can actually play music together in the same room. That means that we could also invite others to join us, complete the lineup, and then it would be wonderful if we could hit the stage and play live concerts. So, this brings us to the end of the interview, I think. Thank you for taking your time to have us in your show. Keep up the good work. Best of luck with your podcast. And let's go out with a blast. Here is the final song, and it's best enjoyed at maximum volume. Cheers!
Yes, indeed, that wraps up Silvermyth In The Dark, aka Metal Punk and Radio Talk with DJ Silvermyth. I have a few tidbits of goodies remaining, but I will put them as an entree of extra number. I will do an extra number in this podcast. One more question with Beyond the Pale, and maybe one more song. We will see. Thank you for listening. See you soon. Ta-ta, shoo-shoo, bye-bye. Let us continue the interview with Beyond the Pale. Let's find a question here. Would you tell the listeners a bit about your earlier musical endeavors?
So, Nuestros Derechos, meaning our rights in Spanish, started in 2000. Back then, we were three guys trying to make some fast and loud music, but to be honest, we sucked quite a lot. We never played in a band before, and in fact, I could hardly play my own instrument. I could hardly play the drums. We did have a lot of fun though, and we simply continued week after week. We simply were too stubborn to give up, so we struggled on. And around 2003, we recorded and mixed 3 songs in a single day. It's a demo called Pen Recording Session, and it sounded very, well, underground, meaning very crappy, but it helped us getting booked and doing a lot of live shows. In 2005, Nuestros Derechos recorded a split EP called Split 'Em All, together with another local band called De Waanzin. Around 2006, our original bass player and co-vocalist decided to quit. He was never really into metal and punk, and after 5 years, he was no longer motivated enough. So Jerry and I, we asked a friend of us called Janet, asked her to join us as replacement, and she gladly accepted. So we continued as a 3-piece, 2 guys and a girl, delivering fast and furious thrash metal with a hardcore punk attitude. And in 2007 we recorded new songs, another EP called Struggling with the Dark. All tracks were recorded and mixed at the Bun Studios in Utrecht, our hometown. They were mastered, by the way, by Ellen Douches at Ellen Douch. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but they were mastered at West Side Music in New Jersey, USA. They have a huge track record of famous bands in the metal and punk scene. Those guys definitely know what they're doing. From the Slackers to D-Side, and from, God forbid, to 25 to Life. Cannibal Corpse they did, the Dillinger Escape Plan, Converge, The Misfits, Demolition Hammer, Crisian, 3 Inches of Blood, Warbringer, Skeleton Witch. Their list is impressively long. Struggling with the Dark was followed by a full-length, finally in 2011, called Adrift. It was recorded and mixed by Menno Bakker at Bun Studios in Utrecht and mastered at West Side Media again. By then, it had become a sort of tradition to include a short instrumental acoustic track and one track with lyrics in Dutch, our native tongue.